Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7's Israel at War update. And today we mark 637 since the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates have launched their atrocities upon southern Israel, namely 637 days ago, October 7th of 2023, during the course of which the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates murdered some 1,200 Israelis, mostly civilians, including also foreign nationals. They wounded over 4,800 others and kidnapped at the time 251 people, including elderly men, women, children, and infants. 50 of them remain in Hamas captivity to date. Now, there seems to be some type of breakthrough. We will soon hear more about that. But before, I'd like also to wish all of our American viewers a happy Independence Day. 249 years is a remarkable achievement, and of course to highlight that from the date of independence up to today in 2025, it's always important also to remember all those who've sacrificed and done everything to the call of duty to ensure the freedom and liberties that the United States enjoys today. So with that, I'd like to introduce our experts for today, to include with TV7's editor-at-large, Mr. Amir Oren. Next to him, Colonel in Reserve, Reuven Ben Shalom, who is a cross-cultural strategist, a fellow at the ICT at Reichman University, as well as a long list of other positions, which we won't go into now. And last but not least, Colonel in Reserve, Miri Eisen, who is also a fellow at the ICT at Reichman University, and formerly, of course, a advisor at the Prime Minister's office. We do have two Americans with us, so we will start with you, Miri, if I may. Today, we, of course, mark a very momentous day to the so-called leader of the free world. How does that converge in the necessity to ensure that freedoms and liberties are privileged not only in the United States, but across Western civilization and around the world, indeed, at large, and here in Israel in particular?
As you said, Jonathan, a privilege. And we need to understand that. And we need to understand that it's something that we need to preserve and honor. We're a young democracy, and the United States is the oldest ongoing democracy that was never before that, in that sense. It wasn't a monarchy that then overthrew the king. It wasn't a monarchy that adapted. It was founded in the way it was. And I think that all of us need to both appreciate what freedom means, to understand that these are things that we should not just fight for, but we should talk about. And I really do hope, as I say, from us young democracy to this amazing democracy in the United States, that it does not lose that amazing quality of openness, of freedom, of, as you said, it's an honor, but it's a privilege that we all should enjoy.
Absolutely. Well, Colonel Ben Shalom, you're also a dual American-Israeli, but nonetheless, the United States has been instrumental in everything that has happened over the course of the past 2 years, standing by the state of Israel from day one, following the atrocities of October 7th, and genuinely, to date, taking the lead in consulting, in leading, in really being an involved partner rather than a bystanding spectator, and making sure that the sole democracy in the Middle East is not pushed out of the equation.
Certainly, this is a very unique relationship that we have. Many times when we talk about, the 4th of July, celebrating freedom, we are working with our American partners that are actually making sure that that happens. These days, we see the Israeli democracy and the American democracy in a way searching for the right path. We see significant changes. When you say democracy, that doesn't necessarily mean one thing, but I think it's obvious to us that if you don't fight for democracy, you can't sustain it. In the United States, you can see debates, can we stay inward? And of course, you can say America first, but is it America in-house? And we don't want to fight faraway wars. And most of us understand, especially those that wear a uniform, that if you don't have an outreach and you're not out there fighting for it and maintaining it, then it can't stay. The last thing I just want to say is thank you. Thank you for the thousands of men and women from the U.S. military that have been all around Israel, on the ground, at sea, in the air, working shoulder to shoulder with us to promote our common values, our common goals. They were instrumental, as you said, in our efforts, and it's really amazing to see them work, to see their dedication, professionalism, and that their heart is also totally in it.
Absolutely. It is also important to highlight the fact that this is a U.S. national security interest. It's not just an Israeli interest. This American interest goes far beyond the scope of bilateral relations. It has regional implications, it has geostrategic implications on a global scale, and also within the prism of strategic power competition. We won't go into all of that right now, but nonetheless, I'd like to turn to Mr. Amir Oren and ask you, the United States is working tirelessly to broker some sort of a cessation of hostilities with or via mediation by the Qataris and the Egyptians to really bring about the release of the hostages, first and foremost, from Hamas captivity, but also to ensure that the Islamist terrorist groups in the Gaza Strip do no longer pose a threat to Israel, and to push back on any attempt for Hamas to maintain its grip over this territory that has unleashed suffering upon so many Palestinians for so many years now.
Well, no longer or never again are quite ambitious commitments. One would only know far in the future whether these commitments could really have been achieved. But yes, these are the goals. And let me just add to what the three of you remarked regarding the 4th of July, that that line from the Star-Spangled Banner, by the rocket's red glare, has come true in so many respects over the last couple of years in Israel, by the rockets and missiles launched at Israel by Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iran, and intercepted by the Israeli Defense Forces, in that case the Israeli Air Force, along with its partners, first and foremost the US Armed Forces via CENTCOM, the Central Command, but also other partners. So that the rocket's red glare from the 19th century already took a very current meaning. Now, as to the negotiations regarding the ceasefire, Israel should have ideally looked for an all-inclusive deal in which all 20 hostages who are alive and the 30 hostages who were either killed, murdered, or died in captivity over the last 21 months would have been released in one fell swoop. The price for that is apparently untenable for the current Israeli government, so they go for an interim deal in which 10 of those hostages who are alive would be released over the 60-day ceasefire period, 8 initially, then the last 2 after several weeks, and 18 bodies out of the 30 would have been returned. And during that time, Israel, under American auspices, would start negotiating the final cessation of hostilities, the end of the war. Now, a few days ago, it seemed that this was going to be announced either today on the 4th. This is what President Trump hoped for. He hoped to couple his legislative victory in Congress on his what he called the one big beautiful bill with this announcement. Maybe this is going to be put off until Monday, when Prime Minister Netanyahu visits Washington. There are always last-minute hitches. Hopefully, they will be worked out.
Indeed. Well, Hamas is seemingly with its back against a wall. It is frustrated with many of the developments, including the methodology that the United States and Israel have acted upon in the distribution of aid to the Palestinian communities in the Gaza Strip, failing time and again to seize the quantities of humanitarian aid that they would then resell, supposedly with levying various taxes upon that, and by accumulating the various funds that they draw out of that, they would then bolster their ranks by hiring additional teenagers, mostly, into their ranks, a custom, of course, that is really abhorrent in context of war, but nonetheless, the Islamist Hamas is utilizing children into this devastating conflict. Now, Colonel Eisen, I'd like to reshift our attention also to Lebanon. A day after the 7th of October, namely on October 8th, 636 days ago, the Iranian proxy Hezbollah entered into the war when it sought to force Israel to split its troops, its forces, basically in order to limit its engagement in the Gaza Strip. It started doing so by launching limited barrages of rockets as well as unmanned aerial vehicles, mostly directing those to the distance of roughly 5 kilometers from the borderline with Lebanon. Naturally, 636 days later, it looks very different there, but nonetheless, with the ceasefire prevailing and Hezbollah still attempting to rebuild itself, it seems that the Iranians are also trying to give it a push, with the RGC Quds Force doing everything in its power, irrespective of the limitations at hand, to assist this Iranian proxy from resupplying itself with various types of munitions. What can you tell us about that, and to what degree is the Israeli enforcement, vigorous as it may, effective?
It's hard to believe that at the end of November 2024, that's a long time ago, when Hezbollah sued for a ceasefire that they needed and have kept ever since, that they have not fired anything against Israel since the end of November, that the entire conflict, the direct conflict between Israel and Iran, Hezbollah did nothing. And Hezbollah right now, domestically, trying to rebuild its capabilities, and in the new wave of what's happened in the aftermath of their being so degraded, we are seeing a fortified Lebanese government, not yet that strong, but already talkative, trying to put Hezbollah into a place where they need to disarm. These are not voices that we heard in Lebanon before November 2024. That means that there's a massive shift happening there. Hezbollah itself is being called out as having weapons, and that those weapons are not part of the Lebanese state, that this is this state within a state with these capabilities. They're not able to rebuild their capabilities for different reasons. One, Syria is not the conduit anymore, the enormous changes that happen there. Two, Iran itself is not necessarily capable to rearm Hezbollah after what happened to them. And I'll even say, I think Iran is still unbelievable of the fact that Hezbollah did nothing during the 12 days of the direct campaign. And last but not least is that the arena inside Lebanon right now is not as receptive as it was before. There are voices to resupplying, to the money, to it being Iranian money into Hezbollah, trying to rebuild the Lebanese Shiite areas and trying to rebuild Hezbollah itself. Look at this combination. It means that in the actions that Israel did up north, after Hezbollah joined in from October 7th, in the summer of 2024 and onward, when we went on the initiative, we have really changed the geopolitical environment for Hezbollah. They can't resupply. They can't get the same kind of money. They want to. Iran wants to. But there are a lot of different impediments that did not exist before. The Lebanese government, the Syrian government, the lack of international backing. And I'm hoping that it will continue that way. I'll end just by saying that Hezbollah wants to rearm. Hezbollah wants to stay that key player, but they need to make that decision right now because they're looking at a Lebanon that is not as open to them as they were in the past.
Colonel Ben Shalom, the vigorous aerial strikes that targeted dozens of locations across southern Lebanon, including a targeted killing in Beirut of an RGC Quds Force commander officer, indicates that Israel is not going to allow Iran to continue to cynically use Lebanese territory for its evil intentions. What can you tell us about that? And to what degree does this also put Iran in a new dilemma from a broader regional perspective?
Even if we saw a few days of quiet here and there, I think it was more a tactical issue or a matter of time-sensitive targets that didn't materialize, because the new Israel after October 7th is that we take care of threats as they emerge. That is the strategy. That's what we're doing. We say that that's what we're going to do. So I don't think anybody expects that even when we have ceasefires from Iran all the way to a close region, that a ceasefire means we can't act. We certainly will act, and we have been acting in Lebanon. So you've seen some significant strikes, again, as you said, from Beirut to the south. So every time we're going to see rearming, regrouping, planning, preparing, doing something, certainly things that have to do with strategic munitions, precision munitions, any kinds of organizations, mainly in the south, we'll take care of it. So that is the new reality. I think one of the most important revelations from this war is that finally everyone understands that Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, they were not just in this to bother Israel, to keep us busy, to just raise the flag of resistance, but without aspirations to annihilate us. They did plan to annihilate us. They were tangible plans by Hamas and Hezbollah and by Iran with names, with titles. And they intended to destroy Israel. Specifically, it was supposed to be with a barrage of rockets, ultimately within 2 or 3 years, in a capacity that would really overwhelm us, and the ramifications would be too devastating. That's why we call it existential, and a simultaneous ground attack. And I think what's happening now is that finally everyone understands, from Iran to Beirut, that our intelligence superiority, our technological superiority, everything we've demonstrated in the last year shows that that's not going to happen, especially with this new strategy of Israel, because we're no longer going to contain. Even this part perhaps means that they need to recalculate, because they know they are not going to succeed.
Mr. Oren, I'm quite curious about the manner in which the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, when I say war, of course, I refer to Operation Rising Lion, did impact Iran's capacity to smuggle weaponry, munitions into Lebanon. We did hear of various attempts coming out of Sudan, where a war is currently raging, out of Somalia, Yemen, as well as Libya, from all places. And at the same time, there is another actor involved where the Iranians are utilizing or exploiting Turkish territory and airspace in order to transfer funds, where the Turks are actually turning a blind eye and allowing the Iranians to transfer those funds for the purpose of helping Hezbollah in Lebanon. Is there some type of effective procedure to confront the Turks on this at a time when Jerusalem and Ankara are seemingly at an all-time low from a diplomatic perspective?
So President Trump met President Erdogan on the sidelines of the NATO summit last week. This was one of the topics, the Syrian problem, and as part of that, the efforts to avoid an Israeli-Turkish friction. But this was not top of the agenda. And the Iranians are now less than 12 days after the 12-day war. And they are still reassessing, they are still recovering from the shock. Obviously, their main focus is on recovering their nuclear project, which was badly beaten. And what you referred to is basically what the IRGC, the Republican Guards Quds Force, is tasked with. And organizations have their own character. The smuggling efforts were undertaken long before the war, and they will still go on regardless of what happens on the central front, which is nuclear. So this is not the main effort, but nevertheless, We have heard that Israeli Defense Minister Katz convened the IDF General Staff and told them to prepare for an enforcement regime against Iran. If Iran tries to rehabilitate its various anti-Israel efforts, be they the nuclear project, the ballistic missiles, and the so-called Ring of Fire through its proxies, Israel should be ready to restart its campaign against Iran. One does not know whether the international community, especially the IAEA, would allow Israel to strike Iran at will each time there are nuclear efforts undertaken in Iran. This is not a given. It's a problem politically and legally, but nevertheless, on all of these lines of effort, Israel is supposed to be ready.
Well, first, you misspoke. It's not the Republican Guard; it's the Revolutionary Guards. Two different things.
Islamic Republic's Revolutionary Guard.
Correct. They might regard themselves as republic, but there's nothing republican about their system of governing, which is a tyrannical system, which, again, an understatement. But with regard to the various activities that you refer to, I think it's important to focus on the fact that the United States of America and Israel have already highlighted their clear red lines to the Islamic Republic of Iran, which those red lines are now also reinforced by Germany and by other Western actors to grant full political backing in the event that the Iranians are pursuing any type of rehabilitation of their nuclear program, which is not the civilian component that was unharmed. That is something that we need to highlight. The civilian component of the nuclear project in Iran, namely the Bushehr 1 and the Bushehr 2 and 3, which the Russians are currently building for a very long time now, are still in essence intact and have not been touched. And therefore, if the Iranians are keen on maintaining a civilian nuclear program, they can just work with that. If they go for the weaponization, as they've done before, there will be dire consequences. Now, I do want to touch also on another actor, namely Yemen, which has attempted to launch yet another ballistic missile in the direction of Israel just last night. Nevertheless, thankfully, that projectile fell short into the vicinity of the Red Sea. Colonel Eisen, what needs to be done in order to confront this menace, namely Ansar Allah, which is dominated by the Houthi tribe in Yemen?
Isn't it funny that yet again it comes to Israel's door? Meaning you have this organization that is at the Horn of Africa on the Saudi Arabian side, inside Yemen. Speaking Yemenite, they are Yemenis who have been blocking off any Israeli shipping through that area, that have been hindering in that area in any way possible. Israel has shown, not just in the 12 days direct confrontation between Israel and Iran, but before that, that we have the air capability, and for that matter, the sea capability, to address the challenge inside Yemen. But it isn't easy, just like it wasn't easy against Iran. Here we're talking about the sporadic attack, meaning they have enough missiles to be able to fire one a day, one every other day, one every 3 days, which would be not fun for us inside Israel at all. It has implications. They could do that for a long time. For us to be able to go after the launchers, the missiles, the sites themselves that they put them together, for us to stop the Iranian resupplying by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard of those supply lines, those are things that I'm sure we're looking at, but we're not the only ones inside that arena. And here I'm going to say on Independence Day, July 4th, this is not something that it should be about Israel and the Houthis against Israel. The Houthis have disrupted a main shipping route in the world. And the fact that they say it's against Israel should disturb everybody, because they could stop anything. They could fire it at the British or German or Chinese or Japanese or any kind of ship that goes through. And we all need to be aware of that. I don't think it should just be us. I do think that we've shown that we have the capability if we need to address it. But again, it's not the same as what we did with Iran. It would be focused, but you cannot eliminate it completely.
Colonel Ben Shalom, we have roughly 1 minute and a half for you to round this up. Summarize for us, what are we to focus on over the weekend at a time when the situation is quite fluid, let's put it mildly?
Well, for us, it's looking all aspect because at any moment it could erupt again with Iran. And as we just saw now, missiles coming in from the Houthis. So we have to continue to look at this as a multi-front war. And true that many things have been led by Iran, but we have to look at all the arenas. This also means Judea and Samaria, because this is close and it's complex. And even we saw something very interesting in this war, that the more broad it is, the farther and more complex military it is, in a way it is for us. We were able to defeat Iranian abilities in 12 days, and still with Gaza we have this problem. So for us, if you ask what the main focus for us, it's the hostages. And I'm not saying this because on a national strategic level, that's the most important thing, but it's something that for our people, we need to get done. We need to bring them home and ultimately continue to see how together with the international community, we promote stability and ultimately, hopefully, peace, a word that we haven't been using so much recently.
Blessed are the peacemakers. Thank you, Colonel Ben Shalom, Colonel Eisen, and Mr. Oren. I will note that we will have all three, Colonel Eisen, Colonel Ben Shalom, and Mr. Oren, hosted our various programs for the upcoming months while I'm briefly away, and we're very deeply appreciative of them being able to take the time to do so. I will also take this opportunity to highlight that TV7 Israel is a donation-based nonprofit ministry with all of our productions available free of charge, nonetheless also exclusively donation-based. Therefore, if you're blessed by the programs and would like to help support produce additional programs just like this one, please do take the time to support it with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. From here in Jerusalem, wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom, and until our next edition. See you then. For more of TV7's productions and editorials, we invite you to visit our website at www.tv7israelnews.com.